More than 7,000 people on a small Caribbean island are suing the U.S. government. They say our military poisoned them with weapons tests. The military says it is not to blame. We have a special investigation that begins for you in just a moment. An island paradise turned toxic, where today thousands of Americans have cancer and other crippling diseases. The people living there blame the U.S. military because for decades it used part of their island for weapons testing. The military says there is no link. It's happening on the island of Vieques, 6 miles off of Puerto Rico. Abby Boudreau of CNN's Special Investigations Unit has the story.
Nearly 40 years ago, on this tiny, remote American island of Vieques, off the coast of Puerto Rico, a young U.S. Marine was stationed as a security guard.
I arrived on the island on the 3rd of July, 1970. I was 17 and a half years old.
At age 57, this is Sergeant Hermogenes Marrero now. He's had colon cancer twice. He's nearly blind and needs an oxygen tank. He has Lou Gehrig's disease, crippling back problems, and sometimes needs a wheelchair.
This is where we lived. This is the actual campsite.
Sergeant Marrero says he's been sick ever since he was stationed on the island.
During that period of time, did you ever think something is really wrong with this picture?
Sure, all the time, because I used to get sick. You know. I go out to the firing range, and sometimes I start bleeding automatically from my nose. I said, my God, why am I bleeding? I come back, and maybe I'm vomiting now. I used to get diarrhea, pains in my stomach all the time, headaches, tremendous headaches. My vision, it used to get blurry.
So what was over there?
Today, this decorated former Marine is the star witness in a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit. More than 7,000 residents of this Caribbean island, about 75% of the people here, are suing the U.S. government. They say what the U.S. military did here made them sick. For nearly 6 decades, beginning right after World War II, the American island of Vieques was one of the Navy's largest firing ranges and weapons testing sites.
Can you give us just a really detailed picture of what it was like when they would use this island as a training ground?
Inside the base, you could feel the ground moving. You can hear the concussions. You could feel it. If you're on the range, you could feel it in your chest. It would actually rain bombs. And this would go on 7 days a week.
The people need the truth to understand what is happening to their bodies.
John Eves Jr. is the attorney in the lawsuit.
One of the biggest problems we have is that we don't believe that the military has fully come clean with all the chemicals and the agents that have been used on this island. Like depleted uranium was denied, and then they admitted it.
After years of controversy and protest, the Navy left Vieques Island in 2003. Today, much of the base is demolished, and what's left largely overgrown.
In my experience in dealing with hazardous sites and toxic substances, Vieques is likely to be one of the most contaminated sites in the world.
Dr. John Wargo is a Yale professor who studies the effects of toxic exposures on human health. He believes people on the island are sick because of the Navy's bombing range.
This contamination results from the longevity of the bombing, the shelling, the strafing, and many different compounds are released, including lead and mercury and cadmium, as well as flame retardants, fuels, and many of these were released in great intensity.
These images, recorded 5 years ago by University of Georgia scientists, show the former bombing range and surrounding waters strewn with unexploded ordnance. According to the UGA scientists, many of those bombs continue to corrode, leaching out carcinogens. The Environmental Protection Agency in 2005 designated parts of Vieques a Superfund toxic site, requiring the Navy to begin cleanup. The Navy identified many thousands of unexploded munitions and set about blowing them up, outraging islanders who fear more toxic chemicals will be released. The U.S. government's response to the islanders' lawsuit is to claim sovereign immunity, that residents have no right to sue the government. And the government also disputes that the Navy's activities on Vieques made islanders ill, citing a 2003 government study that found no link.
So, do you think this island made you sick?
Of course it did. I got sick here on the island. My bones hurt, respiratory problems, vomiting, intestinal disorders.
Do you swear to testify the truth and nothing but the truth?
Sergeant Marrero is not one of the plaintiffs, but was questioned for this sworn deposition. He testified the weapons used on the island included chemical insecticides, depleted uranium, napalm, and Agent Orange.
Agent Orange is a defoliant, and we used to store it in the hazardous material area. It was used in Vieques as a defoliant for defense line.
The military has never acknowledged a link between Sergeant Marrero's illnesses and his time at Vieques.
This is American territory. The people that live here are Americans. And how do you do something in your own backyard and you hurt someone? You have to take care of that person. And the government is just not doing anything about it.
We asked the U.S. Department of Justice and the Navy for comment, but neither wanted to talk to us about the islanders' lawsuit. Campbell.
And Abby, you said more than 7,000 people on the island are suing. Right. It's hard to imagine. It's not a big island that
right.
many people are sick.
I mean, that's the hard part about all of this. We went for a walk with this woman in this neighborhood that she lives in, and she would point out from house to house to house, this person here has cancer, this person in this house over here died from cancer. And then there were houses that were actually boarded up. And I said, well, why are these houses boarded up? And she said, well, these people actually had to leave their house and get off the island to find help because there's not great health care facilities on the island. So these people actually had to leave to find doctors who could help them with their illnesses.
Wow. So what happens now? You said the CDC plans a new investigation.
Yes, they are. They're planning a new investigation. They want to find out if the contamination on this island is actually causing people to get sick. That's the point here. And so really what they want to do is to try to find out if there is a link. And in the past, they have studied this, and they found that there was no link. But many scientists said, well, we disagree with that, and that's why there's going to be a new study. But what's interesting here, Campbell, is that many of these people say, well, I don't care if the government finds a link or if they don't find a link, because we know, we are convinced that this made us sick. And so they said they're going to keep fighting until someone helps them.
And you're going to have more on this, too. We should tell everybody. Tomorrow night, Abby has the story of a woman whose 2 daughters have cancer. Her 16-year-old had half her stomach removed, and the 14-year-old has bone cancer. But again, the military says it is not to blame. Our special investigation, Poison Paradise, continues tomorrow night. Abby will be back here. Thanks so much, Abby.